Fantastic. There's my little acorn there. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks for the kind words. Michael, what's your name? Thank you very much. It's so lovely to see all of you. And it feels like we're on like a TV set here. It feels like I have to give you a sitcom. And it feels like it needs to be canned laughter. Mungesi's are ready to take the notes and maybe throw the papers at me if I don't have anything worthwhile to say. And I think this evening is really just to talk some stories. And the reason around writing this book called Brandalism, which is probably 2 years past its original deadline, Tracy, it was COVID. I was going to blame it. And, for me, I think that so much stuff has happened in the last 2 years. Also the way in which we communicate, the way in which we've stopped communicating, the way in which, especially some of our younger members of our teams, are speaking to a company today. And the thing is, like, telephone calls have become archaic. And people have just kind of reverted to hiding behind sending emails or Slacks or WhatsApps, or whatever the de facto thing is of your business or your organization, because we're actually afraid to communicate with one another. And like Mark said earlier in his introduction, it's like even just coming out to an event feels alien, especially if you live in Joburg, for those tuning in from around the world. Joburg has no street lights. So it feels like we are in a dystopian land. We are more afraid of our neighbors than ever before, and we just don't want to socialize, even though we have such wonderful smiles. Look at that smile. There we go. I haven't had a chance to give out one of those in real life, besides for a Zoom, in a very long time. You know, yeah. So for me, the one thing that I found really interesting was how I actually did a little bit of research. I did a bit of work. Tracy can attest to the whole Brandalism research side of things. And for me, the fascinating thing was there's the S&P 500. And that is a collection of businesses. Those are the best performing businesses in the US stock market. And it's a dick swinging competition in terms of who's doing the best, how their results are faring, and what that means for the economy and how the machine is driving. And the one thing from the S&P 500, here we are in 2022, if we look back in this current state of history, and it's not just because of COVID, it's just because of the speed at which we're communicating, evolving, destroying, growing again, expansion, contraction, all of these elements, the average age of an S&P 500 company was 50, 60 years old in the 70s. It is now only 18 years old. And if you think about 18-year-old businesses, it's quite scary to think, what are those? Facebook is 18 years old. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, sub 18. So it's that kind of generation from Facebook onwards that is 18 years old. And that's a blip in humanity and in human existence. And for me, that was a fascinating insight, because in this stage of our lives, no business has ever grown and become destroyed in a shorter period of time. And I think the reality for so many of us, whether we are entrepreneurs, whether we work in corporate, whether we work in small, nimble agencies, whether we leave our corporate safe job and become photographers overnight, these are opportunities for us to think, how do we reinvent not only ourselves, but our teams and our larger company communities? Because that's ultimately what we're doing. They're evangelizing purpose and our why. And for me, I personally am a Simon Sinek cynic, because I feel that there are so many buzzwords that guys like him and others within that speaking circuit throw out to make us feel like we haven't achieved anything because we don't have a purpose. We don't have some collective esoteric goal that if we're not feeding, homeless children in the evenings whilst doing $1 million deals during the day, then we haven't made it. Whereas for me, I believe that greater than purpose is your own personal kind of manifesto. Like, what is the text, the poem, the one-pager in the Sunday Times that talks to you individually first and is going to make you happy? So many buzzwords are thrown around on a daily basis. But ultimately, what is the thing that stimulates you, that can make you a better daughter, husband, father, auntie, cousin, etc. So let's start with that stuff, because we become so afraid of our community that COVID, the best thing about it, was showing us that we actually had to go knock on the door of our neighbors to get some sugar, because we couldn't go outside because the police might beat you if you're doing a walk with your dog around the block. So we've been institutionalized besides all the stuff from the past. The institutionalization is the fact that, especially as Joburgers, we live in very high-walled properties, whether we live in houses or complexes or freestands, whatever that might be. We have got so used to going into our moat. Feels like the 14th, 13th century where we're expecting someone to come with a pitchfork and a long Lancelot kind of sword and have to fight people on horses in the streets. We may have to ride horses at the state at which the potholes are breaking down. Cars won't survive. Horses, they'll be fine in potholes. And for me, I just think that there's really a great opportunity to start almost vandalizing our thinking and vandalizing the way that we did stuff. So Brandalism is really, it's a celebration of looking at what you've got, not resting on your laurels, and going and breaking stuff down, cannibalizing it so that you can recreate tomorrow what didn't exist today. And Brandalism as a movement actually started out by a bunch of artists, Scottish and other UK artists. They were really disillusioned with advertising. So Brandalism is an anti-advertising movement. They started seeing the negative impact that teenage girls were having as a result of social media. They didn't like the fact that billboards were 150,000% photoshopped and showing women these false images of what perfection or what beauty looks like. Conversely, the Japanese talk about wabi-sabi, which is perfect imperfection. And you've got these two dichotomies of things living in the West and in the East. And what they started doing was they would go and actually start vandalizing outdoor advertising. Billboards, bus shelters, and they'd start putting positive messages. You are good enough, you are beautiful, just the way you are. It sounds a little bit like a Christina song, but those are good messages. Those are the things that we want to teach our children so that we can have a better generation of people after us, because we've done a pretty poor job, haven't we? Claire, how much of a good job have you done? You smashed it. But I think you got to start with the negativity and then you build up to the positivity. Yeah. And I think that's what really excited me about the title. My wife was the one that actually came up with it, and then I started diving deeper into it and just saying, this is a really good starting point, because anti-advertising is kind of the stuff that I stand for. I've never worked in an ad agency, but then I grew one, and it was just it was kind of weird because I didn't have that experience to guide me, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I knew that I didn't want to create based on what existed in that space. So Brandalism has kind of gained momentum in so many different places and in so many different iterations around the world. Most recently, Australia had a whole bunch of bushfires. I think it may have been in 2020, but I can't remember. The last 2 years were a blur. And essentially what happened was Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, said, no, there's no such thing as climate change. I'm just going to go play golf with Donald Trump. But there's no climate change. That Greta Thunberg, she's not allowed in Australia. She's going to spread negative messages. She's going to do terrible things for my points when it comes to re-election. Don't let her in. Then they stopped Novak Djokovic from going on, so that distracted them a little bit from bushfires. But the reality was that Australians were like, hey, we're going to stand up for this. And those Australians, they live in a very controlled Big Brother world, but when you tell them they can't have too many tooies, then they're going to step back and give you 1-4. And then they started brandalizing bus stops, outdoor, the shelters, all those kinds of things with messages around climate change and showing typically Australian characters such as Blinky Bill escaping from fires and saying, do you think climate change doesn't exist now, Scotty? And things like that. Australians, they're great. They find words, they make new words out of words that didn't exist. My sister-in-law, she's a copper in Australia. And yesterday she said, I've learned a new word for you. I want you to try and figure it out. So the word was forby. Forby. Anyone? Anyone got an idea of what the word forby in Australia is? I'll give you a free book for an answer. Forby? I heard a comment over here. Did you say 4x4 first? That is it. There we go. Here's a book winner. Yeah? A 4B is a 4x4. Amazing. Anyway, I digress horribly. And for me, writing the book in 2020, it obviously had to take a little bit of a detour because some of us had to look like ducks and we had to move our little legs below the water and keep the economy ticking over while so much stuff came to a grinding halt. So in 2020, we're all there. We're working on those 12, 14, 16-hour Zoom calls, meets, teams, all the things. How terrible was corporate life then? Do you guys remember that? Waking up in the morning and it was just you at the grind. And then people went and booked meetings back to back for the entire 12-hour day period. Because when it came to the review time, people are smart like that. They knew when the annual reviews came, there was the one piece of documentation that could justify how hard you'd worked. Look at my diary. It's like, basically, I lost Tetris every single day. Look at that. I haven't been working hard enough. Oh, people are getting retrenched. Well, not me, because I've been working 12 hours a day. And that's how we kind of continue to churn. Can't exercise, can't walk the dog, can't buy one loose cigarette and just go and take a hit to the head outside around the corner away from the kids, because there were ridiculous rules. And the interesting side, the plus side on that, there was obviously, not the plus side, the negative side was there was no sport. So we couldn't even escape. We couldn't even just lie to our wives and say, no, there's a massive, massive football match. I've got it. It's a cup. It's a cup first round. You know what that means? It means absolutely nothing, but it's a great way for me to escape for 90 minutes. Couldn't even roll with that. Anyway, so what did happen from lockdown is that the streaming giants, they continued to pump us with endorphins from content, and we got to watch amazing series. And that was the way to escape. So you went from 12 hours of meets and teams and Zooms, then you might have to have fed a child and bathed one, put one to bed, and then you had to watch TV. That was it. And we're like these blobs. We were not athletic, and we were just working, and we had absolutely no balance. Oh, that was so terrible. It's like PTSD. I think we all need therapy. There's actually going to be a therapist after this conversation that you can visit outside. And she's also happening to sell books with her treatment. So, yeah, have a word. There we go. That's the only book plug for today. And for me, what was so interesting was, my octopus teacher came out. And for me, it was such a fascinating moment. I'm a bit of an arty-farty. I love cinematography. And I wonder who the DOP was from this thing. So there's me, excited. And I'd been riding my bicycle in the cul-de-sac. I don't know if I need one of those cool, hats, the serious triathletes have. Look like a teardrop shape. And you just... But I didn't have one of those, but I was on my bicycle, exercising, cul-de-sac, 1,000 loops, getting brown sugar from my neighbors, braais, people clapping at night. Remember when the clapping, it stopped after, in Joburg it stopped after about 7 days. Cape Town, 700 days, clapping. Woo! People in Cape Town now, is it 7 o'clock yet? They're still clapping. And, so my octopus teacher came out and I was like, wow, what a great escape from all these meetings. And I'm watching, oh my God, look at this underwater is beautiful. And oh my God, it's amazing. We've gone to more places in the solar system than we have knowing about the bottom and the depths of the ocean. And then I was watching this and my wife was so cynical. She's just like, oh, you're boring. And then got to the end of it and I was like, wow, magical, eh? And she's like, are you joking? She's like, seriously, if you had a midlife crisis and you went and swam with a sea creature instead of spending time with your own children, I would literally pack your shit into a tog bag, I would set it on fire, and you would never come back inside ever again. I'd change the locks. And then I was like, wow, that's quite intense, eh? That's quite hectic. I was like, well, it's a good thing we don't live in Cape Town then, because I've got no sea creatures to make friends with. And the next day on my bike, I was just cruising on the bike. And then I thought, that's amazing. How many relationships or scenarios are there out in South Africa right now where people are debating about the guy in the octopus, There were obviously all those rumors, did they fake it? Because octopus lifespan is 8 days. And they shot this thing over 3 years. So, there must be about 25 octopus extras. And how many octopi are crawling all over this dude? Also, I heard from people that really know the ocean. They're like, that is insanely dangerous. Do you know how crazy? Man, those octopus, they're like anacondas of the ocean. They'll suck out your heart with their suckers. I don't think that's true. I think that's a massive lie. But yeah, they actually are quite dangerous. And this whole thing transpired, and I was like, wow, I'm basically so disillusioned right now. My only escape from real world with this guy swimming with octopuses, just basically my dreams and hopes have been crushed in all these negative sentiments that are on the internet and all the conspiracy theories about the real octopus or many octopi. So I thought, okay, cool. Let's make a spoof around this thing, because it's like, what an amazing story, and like it deserves to have some advertising in it or some branded content. That's how my brain works. And we have this WhatsApp group at the office. So I always like to sound check some of the ideas with the WhatsApp group, because I'm always concerned, like if we're making stuff, how many people out there will associated with it? Have enough people actually seen the octopus documentary, or is it just one of those art circles things where people are like, oh wow, and they're like testing the merits of like the sea, and like, is it going to save the planet, and all those things. And on the WhatsApp group, I'm very humble about it, and I say to some of the cool black kids from the office, I'm like, guys, do I sound like the old white guy by wanting to do this piece of content? Like, you have to be honest with them. And we've got like a tree of trust in the office. Like the WhatsApp group, we can ask questions about like politics and, non-gender, gender, non-binary, and like all those kinds of things. So I can ask the questions, and then people say, no, that sounds like a real old white guy kind of idea. Don't do that. That's going to bomb. Or if we do that, you guys are going to get dragged, and this brand is going to get absolutely annihilated. So that's a terrible thing. So I put on the group, and I was like, guys, what about this? Like, let's have a think here. And we'd been chatting to Creepy Crawly because we were going to be doing a campaign for them for the Paralympics with some Paralympian swimmers. And I was like, oh, Creepy Crawly, that'll be amazing. Like, look how, it even looks like a sea creature. What a vibe. And Glenn, the comedian, and we have had a pretty good relationship. We've done a lot of work together over the years. And I said to Glenn, Glenn, you would actually do a pretty good Craig Foster impersonation. Just send me some voice notes. And then he just started sending these to me, like, it's so magical. Oh, the creature. Oh, it's the creature of the deep. And I was basically in tears. Then I'm sending the voice notes back to the work WhatsApp group. Then the cool black kids are telling me, listen, I'm onto something else. I'm like, shup, I'm good here. And then we start sending the client, like the trailer. And he's like, oh, I don't have the Netflix, man. What is it? And then, when someone puts a the in front of a social network, it's like the Facebook, the Twitter, the WhatsApp. That's my favorite. Your parents can never call it WhatsApp. It's the WhatsApp. Yeah. It sounds a lot more dope though. Like they should have called it WhatsApp. Yo, Tony, what's up? I got a WhatsApp. That could be much cooler. WhatsApp. Anyway, so went on this thing. We were like, dude, you have to give us money because we want to make a story about the Netflix of this oak swimming with the octopus, but it has to be the Creepy Crawly. And then they were obsessed about what model of Creepy Crawly it was. You have to use the right one. And then like it snowballed. Like, we got some cash. We made the thing on a Saturday. We then went live on the Sunday. And then I was at Sun City for my birthday. And the next minute I started getting people WhatsApping the content back to me. Yeah, exactly. And then I got someone say, Sharman, this looks like something you made. And I was like, oh my God, the internet is breaking. And then jumped on and then looked at the tweets and engaged with the people and tell them the things. And like that's where I get obsessed about this stuff. Like a lot of advertising people get obsessed about making the thing. Like we made the craft. We won the Grand Prix for the craft. We got the Cannes Lions. But I like the part when people actually see the stuff. The stuff where your mom actually sees it and she's like, I'm so proud my boy worked on this. Or it's on the ENCA and they're like, we watched you on ENCA last night. And what was cool about this was we got to put Glenn the comedian onto real life journalistic TV interviews. And it's my favorite. Like most brands are so like hectic, like, oh no, we have to have the head of corporate comms and have you briefed them? You've sent a media briefing? And oh yes, what time is it? And who is the anchor? And what is their background? And what is their last tweet? And with them, they're like, we don't know what the Netflix is, so just you guys roll with it. Then Glenn's on the interview, and this anchor on ENCA, she's very proud, and I think it may have been her first day on the job, and she's got the notes there and her pen there, and she's doing the perfectly calculated, hello South Africa, welcome to this evening's edition of ENCA, South Africa Today, and she said, a local comedian, he has done the spoof of my octopus teacher, and then we go into the interview, Glenn, I don't know, he's had a long day, he's looking a little bit amped, he may have needed to take some ADHD medication that day, but she says to him, one of the best, I cannot forget this line as long as I live. And she says, Glenn, what has Craig Foster's team, how have they adapted and how have they responded to you spoofing him and the octopus story? And he said, what? I think she spilled a branded cup of water. And she said, I didn't spoof Craig Foster. Craig Foster spoofed me and my Creepy Crawly. Yeah. So the first video I'm going to play is of that case study in particular.
2020 was extra. The national sentiment was overwhelmingly negative.
Well, the COVID-19 outbreak isn't showing any signs of easing down.
The continent may lose up to 20 million jobs.
That is, until a documentary dropped on Netflix about a Cape Townian befriending an octopus.
A new Netflix original documentary called My Octopus Teacher
has received 8 nominations for the Jackson Wild Media Award.
A lot of people say an octopus is like an alien, but you realize that we're very similar.
While everyone was talking about My Octopus Teacher, we decided to hijack the news and remind South Africa about the original, majestic creature of the deep. End.
And then I had this crazy idea.
What happens if I just went every day?
This unusual relationship has inspired a local comedian to create a spoof.
And he calls his My Creepy Teacher.
The hashtag #MyCreepyTeacher is a creepy crawly branded content piece that parodies My Octopus Teacher.
Now, this is for an automatic pool cleaner at the beginning of the summer season, so the timing is perfect. It's gone around the world. It's gone huge.
There's this hilarious guy who has the same voice, looks like the same kitchen. He goes in his pool and tries to bond with the creepy crawler.
That's really funny stuff. The video's already clocked up over 200,000 views in just under 10 hours.
From concept to viral in 96 hours. More than 5 million views. 0 paid media. Combined press and social media reach 2 billion people. 20% increase in product demand from pool department buyers countrywide. So in the early part of my career, I spent a long time with this pool guy. He's fantastic. I'll give you his number after this if you want.
Thanks so much. Thanks. Yeah, he's such a beaut. We've known each other for like 10 plus years. He's directed commercials for me. We get on really well. I also had this time in my life when I wanted to be an actor and a comedian. So I actually just left South Africa and I moved to Hollywood for 6 months, learned how to write some stand-up comedy. So like everything about what we do has some form of like comedic insight or writing in it. And I always talk around like stand-up comedy and marketing are actually cousins. With stand-up comedy, you get up on stage in front of a group of people, different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, races, creeds, ethnicities, etc., and you're always trying to find something that people can nod their head to and they can agree with, because that's the truth and that's the premise. As marketers, or even as entrepreneurs, we're trying to find market fit for something that can relate to a wide group of people. And that's kind of where we like to play. We like to play in the space of what's the truth, what's the funny, what's the insight, because we all know as South Africans, the truth is actually funnier than fiction, 95% of the time. So this was great because like when I started Retroviral in 2010, I'd been working in the UK for a couple of years prior to that. And for me, I always wanted to create something that had like a bit of a hybrid thinking. You guys are talking about the holy trinity of R&B. I talk about the holy trinity of marketing. And for me, that's like, it's digital, it's PR, and it's activation. So as we become more digital savvy, we actually crave more human interaction. So that's why you guys are here tonight and not just watching a stream. You know, like that's why we would love to all go and watch a TED Talk in person or a TEDx talk around South Africa, because there's just something different about standing here in front of someone. My jokes are much funnier in person than they are via a screen. And secondly, I think there's something about the peripheral kind of networking and engagement with people. Networking is such a terrible old school word, but that's effectively what you guys are doing tonight. You're going to have a chat with some people, you're going to have some drinks, and ultimately, like, just talking to a stranger in this kind of setting makes all those high walls and the barbed wire and the electric fences disappear for a couple of hours. It makes us feel like we're in a space where we can connect with people who we've never met before. We don't know what they necessarily do, but it's almost like speed dating professionally, where you get to learn a little bit about someone different and maybe make a new friend tonight. Hope you all go home with a friend. So you are really on the friendship train tonight. You're telling people they look like someone else. That's the good old, that's the old chestnut. That's when you are a pro at stalking new people. You're just like, yo, you look, hey, Jody Jordan, nah, not me. Oh, you look, I'll show you on Facebook. You look exactly like her. Looks nothing like her. You look so different with a mask on. I mean, she's got blonde straight hair, but just the mask, I didn't see underneath it. Anyway, I digress. Sorry, viewers, that is absolutely no context for you, so Mark might have to edit that out. I don't even know where I was going with that, but anyway, sorry. Yeah, I think I need like adult ADHD medication. Anyway, so like starting Retroviral, like our job really began where the niche from our side was allowing brands to amplify content. Back in 2010, you couldn't buy Facebook ads with a credit card, you couldn't boost tweets, you couldn't buy Instagram ads, you couldn't buy pre-rolls on YouTube. So I had a background in PR, and the ultimate influencers of any generation were always journalists, because the one way to convince people to buy into your message was to talk from one to one. And then journalists became like the gateway to talk from one to many, because they had millions of audiences, whether they were on TV, radio, newspaper, print wasn't, digital wasn't so big at the time yet. So obviously, like they were almost like the gatekeepers of audience. And marketers and comms people, we're always looking for channels, always looking for ways, and it's not always just the paid stuff where you know you've got a guaranteed channel with a guaranteed show, guaranteed interruption. From an earned media perspective, like you really are gaining credibility through an editorial space that is known for covering a niche, whether it be business, arts and entertainment, sport, etc. So started Retroviral in 2010, managed to pick up some work with Ogilvy, with Miller, Rock the Boat. They had those cruises back in the day, and then cruises died because there was COVID. And then we picked up some Nando's work, and for me it was always interesting because, you know, nowadays we're all so used to Nando's posters going viral. Like if something topical happens, a clever poster of copy comes out, then it goes viral. And back in 2010, they used to buy space in newspapers to spread that story. So one of our first jobs was like, Nando's, there's a whole social media world. Just give it to some influential people on the internet and it'll spread like wildfire. It was like magic. Felt like I was one of those magicians from the 1600s chopping people's body parts in half and then like, ta-da! Fortunately, nobody dies on the internet. And we always joke in marketing, we aren't doctors without borders. So if your campaign fails, you've just lost some money. And most of the time at corporate level, it's just a rounding error on a balance sheet. So if your campaign fails, nobody's going to die. Hey, Ethel. Maybe they have. I mean, there was a bit of an awkward laugh there, so we know. No, we'll never know about it. We'll keep it hush. Anyway, so when it came time to like get to a stage of really amplifying content, like that was the thing that we were really good at. And then after a while, more and more ways emerged in order to buy ads. Like even now, we spoke about buying Facebook ads with credit cards. Like anybody can put a piece of content on the internet, they can promote it, and it can be seen by X, Y, or Z amount of people. And obviously, as more and more people started creating content, it became more and more cluttered. The social networks then started to clutter algorithms. Now you have to spend more money to get your piece of content seen by less people, and now you have to be even better and more remarkable. And it's just like we've created these machines that just need to be fed with stuff. And we've just created a whole digital wasteland of clutter. So for me, like, I like to make stories that stick out from the clutter. And off the back of Creepy Teacher, we then obviously picked up a whole host of new friends. People were interested, like, how did you do this? How did you make it go viral? And for me, you know, we're in a fortunate place where for 12 years, we've made at least one brand go globally viral, whether it be Nando's, whether it be Creepy Crawly, whether it be Rocker Mamas, whether it be Ryobi Power Tools. So we've become like accustomed to designing the mixture of the science of remarkable content seeded to the right people, and then sometimes you need the mix of paid media to support that message getting out there. So it's not very, like for me, it's very scientific, but at the same time, it's also not very cheap. People expect, if you're making content on the internet, oh, it must be cheap. And you know, they want the world, they want all this talkability, they want all the conversation, they want all this engagement, but at the same time, so few brands are willing to pay. And that's always the challenge. And for those of you who are entrepreneurially minded in the room, it's like, how do you continue to unlock your value or showcase your value in a world that might be new territory for you? Because it's so easy, excuse me, to go and want to sell something or to win a new client or to prove your worth. But there comes a time where you actually have to stand back and push back and say, no, this is not the type of work I want to do, because that is the value that I should be gaining off the back of the work and the outputs that I'm generating for you. And I think that's always like a very difficult space when you're running your own business. It's like, how much are you actually worth? And I think there comes a whole time when you like need to have like a little bit of retrospect and say like, how much is my pricing? What does it compare with other people in the market? What is the space doing? You know, am I an artist? Am I a creator? Am I an accountant? Because each of these things comes with value, right? And one of the best relationships that I gained off the back of the Creepy Teacher was from Checkers. Like their 60/60 innovation was phenomenal. I mean, if you look at it now, you would think like a Woolies or a Pick and Pay, like they would have been first to market. For me, what's really interesting is that as a brand, 60/60 has basically taken an 85% market share in grocery delivery app. We saw what Uber Eats did. We saw what so many other brands have tried to do to emulate so that they can have access to the customer data, because that's what we're told on a daily basis. Our data is gold. And that's what all the brands out there are trying to mine. They're trying to own the customer. And for me, what I love about the 60/60 guys is that they actually pay their scooter drivers. Like so many of these other companies, they don't have those people as employees. You see so many of these other biking guys jumping through red robots, you know, almost threatening their own lives because there's certain time limits and there's certain restrictions when they have to be, how they have to be, and they also have to hit a certain amount of deliveries so that they can get their allocated pay for the day or the week. And off the back of that, they're like, you know, listen, we've really got an interesting retail campaign. And that's when my kind of eyes sometimes glaze over, because retail has its place. Some of us in the audience, we want to open our broadsheet and we want to see that we can get two liters of Oros for X amount of rands. But the reality is the average person on social media doesn't want to get served a broadsheet for 2 liters of Oros. You know, we've got better things to do. We've got more things to scroll. We've got dates to go on. I mean, whatever you're doing on the internet, no judges. But ultimately, they said, we've got this Mendoza song, the 50/50, we've converted it into Let's Go 60/60. Okay, and I thought, that sounds pretty interesting. Listen to it. I'm like, yeah, it's typical retail. We'll work great on radio, be great on TV. But like, what are you guys doing on social? And there's quite a few comedians that I have in my network. We work with them on a weekly basis. We try and bounce ideas off to create content for brands. And I spoke to comedian Donovan Goliath, and I said to him, Don, you've just had a small child. Anyone here have a small child? Or several small childs? You have a small child? Great. And you got a night out, and you got a glass of wine. You are currently living your best life. Cheers to you. I'm going to just keep talking a lot tonight, because I have small children at home too. So we'll just keep talking, drink more wine. We'll just... Great, so you are absolutely winning. So I said to Don, listen Don, I was in Cape Town on a trip once. Has anyone ever been to Cape Town on a Sunday night and run out of baby formula? I mean, it's a very niche example, right? But let me tell you, it is easier to find tick on the streets of Sea Point than it is to find baby formula. I was like on the mad mission. I was like basically on my bicycle, but in the car, trying to find baby formula. You know. And I found this dodgy 7-Eleven. I managed to find a tub of, I don't know, it was branded in Arabic. So I mean, I don't even know. It might have been Cremora, but it did the trick. It did the trick. It did the trick for the morning, and it got me through the night. And I said to Don on this call, it was probably a Zoom call, I said, Don, you've got a small child, you know, you have all these challenges. Told him the story about the tick. We all laughed. It was a great time. We laughed together. And then, thank you, Claire. Thanks for being in the room. And then I said to him, but like, what are the other things? What are the other pain points of being a new parent? And like, what are the things you're panicked about running out of? So then I just started like coming up with these lines. Like I feel like I'm Eminem a lot of the time, but in advertising. So I was like, run out of nappies, my wife's not happy, let's go 60/60. Yeah, that's why I'm in advertising, not in rap. And he was like, I totally relate. And then off the back of that, we like bounced some more ideas, and then he went and just shot a whole bunch of content about all of the stuff that he's panicked about running out of as a new dad, with the stress of his wife and like, what is she going to say if he's got the wrong thing and he didn't make the order in time and he's messed up, because us dads, we mess up constantly. It's like women have this amazing like maternal gene. Like your maternal DNA is so strong. You like basically are like Jedi Knights of understanding what a child needs. They're sick, boom, Colpal, boom, put this 5 mils, 10 mils. It's like you turn into like a cast member of Grey's Anatomy. For me, I mean, I only did biology to like standard 8. So I mean, like, what is Colpal? Like, but I know it's the thing that knocks the child out on an aeroplane flight. And the mom's like, don't give more than 10 mils. 10 mils, like, that's cool. Don't do this. And they just know these things. It's like, I don't know, it just feels like they should all women should just go into medicine after they've had children. Imagine, we wouldn't have to hire Cuban doctors. And I digress again, I'm so sorry. But anyway, so we came up with these concepts, we bounced them backwards and forwards, and then Don put it onto TikTok, and boom, TikTok, let me tell you, is like the hidden gem of algorithm reach right now. It's the one place. The Chinese, they will not throttle that algorithm just yet. They'll make you spend soon, let me tell you. But right now, the algorithm is a dream. Anyway, so did this campaign, then I did another campaign with them later on in the year for Christmas. The 60/60 drivers were wearing the red Santa uniforms. Jeez, that must have been so hot in December. I wear a Santa uniform to hand out presents on Christmas Day. Ho, ho, ho! I'm schwitzing worse than I am now. And anyway, so did some stuff, some work together. And then at the start of this year, it was so fascinating because once again, the power of the in-person meeting. So I flew down to Cape Town. There were a whole bunch of clients that I had down there, had never met them in real life. For over 2 years, been working with people, been engaging with them. And that's the fascinating thing about lockdown. One, we've realized how globally connected we are and how we can actually ask people for more introductions. So it's taken and it's eradicated a lot of that shyness. But then, now we've got the in-person challenge. We are socially unfit. It's exhausting standing and presenting you guys in real life right now. This is sitting here behind the screen. Hello, this is my present. This is Brandalism. Buy my book. Here's a cool story. Back to the pajamas. That was a whole different world. Now I actually have to stand up and sweat on you people in the front. I'm so sorry. So, had this in-person meeting, and it's there's also a lot of serendipity in in-person meetings because of connecting the dots in certain ways. So I chatted to them, and then a few days later, what I love about Checkers 60/60 is that their team is so collaborative. They have people from the level of actuary level, super smart, go to the casino with them because they're going to win something on blackjack, all the way, or roulette, all the way through to interns that have fresh face and they're ready to get excited in the grocery retail world. And there was a young girl who'd watched Tinder Swindler, and she came up with the idea of creating a mission, don't get swindled, on the Checkers 60/60 app. And her name is Nasipi Wase. I like to give her a shout out. And we became friends on LinkedIn. We finally met the other day for the first time. And in that environment, she felt safe to be able to pitch that idea into her organization. And, for me, I think that is such a great example of corporate culture. Think about how many people are too scared to put up their hand, send the email, make the suggestion because they'll get shot down by someone who's senior. I'm a subordinate, I need to stick in my lane. There, she felt safe enough to... You've been a subordinate and had to stick in your lane? Oh, goodness. Stick in your lane, son. And how cool is it that she felt safe enough to come up with this idea that became an actual mission on an app, the largest grocery delivery app in the country. And then I said to them, guys, this is so funny because I just watched Tinder Swindler that night. And then I took screen grabs and put them on Twitter and LinkedIn. And within 5 hours, I'd had 100,000 views of my Twitter and my LinkedIn post. And I was like, you guys are onto something here, this relevancy. And there have been enough South Africans that have watched it. Also in your affluent delivery market, enough people have Netflix that there's a direct correlation between the content and the storytelling. So I said, guys, it was basically, I felt like a swindler. I was like, yo, give me this amount of money in half an hour or you'll never see your children again. I said, also, Glenn looks nothing like Craig Foster in The Creepy Teacher, but holy shit, he looks exactly like Simon Leviev. It's those Israeli genes. So I wrote some lines, sent the thing, we jumped on the conference call, said, yo, these are the lines, this is the thing. And then they were like, okay, go less on the brand, which was amazing, because also, make the logo bigger is generally 9 times out of 10 is what we're told. Hey, Claire, how many times did you tell me to make the logo bigger? Hey-oh. And then, they just let us play. It was Thursday morning. We then shot it Thursday night. I got the edit. I was at Steak Club with the boys, and then I got a first draft. Probably had a couple of whizzos. Flick it back on the WhatsApp to the client. Client has a look at it. This is banging. Let's make some tweaks. Tweaked in the morning, Friday morning. Boom. Friday afternoon, it's up. Boom. On TikTok. Okay, play the video, please. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm here to speak out against my enemy, 60/60, who have stolen my intellectual property and who have blocked me from using the app. You stop playing games with me now. Stop. Listen to me now. Listen to me. 60-60. I need my account back today. I need my groceries today. Look, I'm sorry about what I had said. It's just that I can't go out in public now so I need my groceries to succeed. I'm asking you nicely. I'm talking to you nicely. I'm not shouting at you. I'm not your enemy. I don't even want access to the app. I'm just asking you to meet the list of my demands, which is candles, caramel milk chocolate, medium to low priced Prosecco, biltong, and dental floss. They go together. And the discount card. Give it today. Why it take so long? Today. Give it now. Look, 60-60. I'm sorry about everything. I love you. I care about you. To every action is reaction.
It's that part I love watching. It's like, you know how you have those reaction videos on the internet where people film their friends watching something for the first time. Every time I show that video to an audience of people, I always watch for the moment where he actually physically drools. And everyone's is like, and then there's this almost like latent thing of like, he actually just drooled. Like, that's when you know he was absolutely in it. And what was great about that was like, when you've got such trust where everyone from the junior person coming up with the idea to then saying yes to the agency, make the thing, then getting to make it, actually reduce the amount of brand mentions, keep it tighter, and then putting it out on the internet. This thing got 4.7 million views on TikTok in like 4 days. And once again, drive the PR cycle, get Glenn on the news. I think he was actually drunk for one of the interviews. I mean, it was spectacular. It's a PR dream. What is he going to say? He was playing 60 seconds with like clippies and now he's like on the news. I don't know if it's a statement of South African journalism, but anyway, we just try and have a lot of fun. And for me, ultimately that's what Brandalism is really about. It's just like, what are the new ways? Because there's a very good chance that your business won't be around in the next decade or 5 years. So how can you convince yourself, your team, your business partner, your corporate that you really need to start re-looking, vandalizing what isn't working and recreating for a better future so that you have a sustainable business? Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you. And please support Mark and the Tryst because I think it's an amazing hybrid streaming real life opportunity. And there's even a sweet mug and bean next door for when you get hungry, or you can have drinks downstairs. I mean, it's basically everything. It's wonderful.